Good morning to you once again. Thank you so much for being with us on Morning at NTV. We do journey on the 16th of September 2024. Our Kickstarter is going to be focusing on tracking the progress of, municipalities turned into cities. Is yours one of those that was turned into a city in the last time this decision was made? What has been the impact, the realization and the benefit to you directly, as well as to community and city building? And also in terms of resources, have those resources come closer to you? Has there been service delivery that is better as compared to what it was previously? And what are the new cities promising? Effectiveness of public sector reforms, and of course the impact of liberalism philosophies in modern politics. I am Priscilla Regina Naloga. Welcome to our Kickstarter. The backbone of it is that recently Parliament in a reform approved the creation of 15 cities to be operationalized in a phased manner. And in the financial year of 2020 and 2021, 10 cities were operationalized. Now, last week equally, while presenting the budget strategies for the financial year 2025-2026, you do have the Finance Minister Matia Kasaija declaring that they would be securing resources needed to operationalize the 5 remaining planned 4 cities. And today we put focus on the objectivity of this plan and how it is actually going to be panning out. But also this discussion shall argue that it is intended as a critical approach to fundamental theoretical concepts of political thought used as presuppositions of the theories of democracy. Now, to have these conversations in depth, I am joined by Kassim Kamugisha, a lawyer. We also do have a senior citizen on this panel this morning, Captain Francis Babu. I'm going to allow them their salutations and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the matter from where they are seated, starting with my immediate left. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Priscilla. Good morning, viewers, and good morning, Uganda. On a lighter note, I want to join the majority Ugandans to wish His Excellency the President a belated 80th birthday. It's a blessing from God. Life is a gift we live once.
Okay, all right. Captain, good morning to you.
Good morning. I'll join you on that one. We always wish everybody a good birthday. But on top of it, I got excited some time back when Vice President Harris was debating with the former President Trump, when he talked about immigrants in the United States. And they actually talked about a lot of things. But one which really caught my eye is that immigrants, when they go to America, they eat cats, dogs, and pets. So I got I got excited with that one. Uganda has been one of those countries that gave immigrants, gave refugees a place. We started with people in the Second World War, the Polish. We even went as far as having Mau Mau here. We had a lot of people. Now we have over 1 million people who have been allowed to come to Uganda. Luckily, ours do not engage in that kind of eating. Mm-hmm. And recently we got something called Mpox, which is brought about by eating rodents, things like cats, things like monkeys and cats. So when I heard that one, I got one thing coming to my mind. Please don't go to other people's country. Let's build our country. Mm-hmm. So we don't become refugees in other people's country. And second, this business of going to other country to look for jobs, our government should use this one to think very hard. How do we create an environment so that our people can stay in the country, enjoy their country, and stop being immigrants in other people's countries? Mm-hmm. I think that's the main lesson in this. And when somebody over 80 years begins to talk about cats and dogs and pets, you begin to get a little bit worried. These people have got, but his father was an immigrant, his wives are immigrants. So the whole thing is just a big joke. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're most welcome. And then we also do have Councillor George Musisi, who's joining us for this debate. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here. I had my senior brother and friend, Captain Babu, and my brother congratulating the President, and I was saying it's interesting to note the development of the birthdays coming from not knowing the back date to low-key celebrations, no massive celebration. I think that is also progress.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. Now, Captain has mentioned building our own country. One of the ways that we're building our own countries is by creating more districts, more municipalities, basically finding a way of extending service delivery to the last mile. Government last week announcing that come July 1st, 2025, 5 municipal councils will be upgraded to city status, including Moroto, there is Kavale, there is Entebbe, Nakasongola, and Wakiso district. The big question is, what does this mean for such areas? And first and foremost, why even such areas? Senior, you definitely are in a better position to tell us why these particular areas are of positioning to government.
Well, first and foremost, let us take it from the background. I think a lot of people get excited when they hear it. It's good to create cities, all right, but it must be done logically. For example, the Local Government Act 243, which provides the creation of cities with the powers of those conferred upon the district, the powers they have are equivalent to that of the district. The local governments may sue and be sued according to the same act. The minister may, with the approval of Parliament, decide an urban area. But let's think about it. What they talked about in the cabinet was a little bit more precise than that. For example, they wanted the former sub-regions we had, 15 sub-regions, that each one of them should have a capital. And that capital would be equivalent to a city, and there would have been a municipality before it became a city. Now, the Urban Authorities Act of 1964, which was the first one which was written in this country, which preceded the colonial one, it virtually went from a town council to a municipality to a city. Now, they had numbers, so you had a population number, and you had activities, and the area was also known, and therefore it was created in such a way that it had a meaning, a stature. What was the stature of that capital? For example, if you say these are the areas they had got. For example, you had said Acholi would have Gulu, Akole would have Mbarara, Buganda would have Nakasongola, Entebbe, Masaka, Wakiso cities added on Kampala. Then you would have Bugisu, Mbale, Bukedi, Tororo, Bunyoro, Hoima, Busoga, Jinja, Karamoja, Moroto, Kigezi, Kabale, Lango, Lira, Renzori, Kasese, and then you have Teso, Soroti. Now, these sub-regions, I think some of us have been talking about, they're wide, they're big enough, they can have a small capital. At the same time, that's the stature we're talking about. And then the area is attractive enough for commercial activities. Now, these cities should have an income. Government initially might pay money to put up the infrastructure required. There are basically infrastructures required to form these cities. They are not natural. You know, there's what you call natural cities. It starts as a town council, grows wider, becomes a municipality, and eventually becomes a city because of its commercial activities. And fortunately here, we are creating towns, and there's a lot of question mark. What is their income like? And how much is government going to put in? I think it should be an economic issue here, much more than anything else. Now, had we created these sub-regions, which has been that has been my song, that these districts are too small, we should have something slightly as big as a sub-region. For example, if you have West Nile, and say Arua is its town, and they have a legislature, and you give them slightly more power and more money to be able to run not only the district, not only the area, which I would call a sub-region here, but also the capitals of that sub-region. You'd have a legislature there, this political wing of it, you'd have commercial activities which would encourage, but then you must have a good physical planning. Now, we have a department of physical planning, urban and the urban area planning also, we have that in the government. Give them give them the resources they require to plan them nicely. For example, you're seeing Kampala now. If you don't know about Kampala, I give you a background. We used to have 2 municipalities. We used to have Kampala municipality and Mengo municipality when I was young. The Mengo municipality took everything. You know, if you see Nakivo Channel, anything on the other side going up to Rubiri and all that. And then Kampala was only the CBD, Nakasero, Kololo. That used to be the municipality then. And by the capital was not Kampala, it was Entebbe. Now, eventually Kampala became the capital because they had built a lot of infrastructure here, and therefore the commercial requirement did dictate that this would be the capital, not only the capital, but also the city. So when they combined Mengo and Kampala municipality, they formed the Kampala city. As we talk right now, there is a new program on government that they're going to create what they call the Kampala metropolitan area. It's a metropolis, which will have several municipalities. So all these municipalities you're seeing, including Wakiso and all that is going to be formed, including Entebbe and all that, those would fall under the Kampala metropolitan. So we'll have a big metropolis. Now, to do this, you require a lot of resources. And my question is going to be, we can't even find a place to dump our garbage as Kampala. What infrastructure are we able to build for these cities so that they become good cities and be respected? Therefore, the physical planning, the economic requirement of these cities, the level of decentralization, and therefore if you're talking about, because the main reason they are giving, if we make these capitals, if we make these cities of these areas, they will decongest Kampala. So people can go, instead of coming to Kampala, they'll be in Jinja, others would stay in Masaka, and so on and so forth. Now, these are the points they are putting forward. My argument is a little bit more, will require a little bit more logical approach, and not to hurry. There's a little bit of hurrying to form these cities for political reasons. Oh, we shall have one woman representative. It will be bigger. This parliament will now become even bigger. The argument is very simple. That is not the problem. The problem is, can we plan these cities with all its requirements, including what we've been talking about, the infrastructures required. We require drainage. Drainage is a very big thing in a city because of the roads. We require garbage management. But garbage management is a big issue in a lot of countries. India is the best example. They have the biggest problem in the world. Then you have a country like Singapore, which has turned garbage management into a very simple thing. But they have spent a lot of hours and money. So I want to end there by saying, plan the infrastructure well, have enough money to plan it. You need housing, by the way. Each town must have housing for the people who migrate to those towns.
Okay. All right. Speaking of housing, we do have as a country a deficit of 2.4 million in terms of housing. Coming to you, Kassim Kamugisha, in this regard, when we date back to 2020, you do have the new cities that were approved, or the creation thereof, the 15 of them, and you do have 7 of these having been operationalized in July 2020, reflecting on those and the rules of nature of progression, and in regards to what Captain Francis Babu has shared with us. Have we actually seen any significant impact of the operationalization of those cities, but also in terms of development and physical planning? Has there been any significant progress?
I want to agree with Captain that there could be some hurrying in the approach by the government. But I have to remind Captain and the viewers that the approach of the government has always been mass line. That you approach every program looking at the mass line approach, in the sense that in the future you have touched on many things, and when you have resources, you can push them to succeed. Immunization was one of them. UPE was also one of them. USE. Then you are looking at wealth creation. That is the mass line approach, and also to urbanization. It can't be exceptional. The approach must be mass line. The idea should be there, then you talk about mobilizing resources to actualize the idea qualitatively, but when the quantity is there. So back to your question, that the cities which were created in the first phase, are we seeing tangible development in the cities? Yes, the answer can be yes, the answer can be no, depending on where you are sitting. But when you look at, because the ones I have got access to are Masaka, then Mbarara, because I interact with them oftenly. When you look at Masaka of 2010 and Masaka of 2024 in terms of infrastructure, and I'm talking about roads, the network has improved. I might not have statistics by the fingertips, but the eyes tell it all. There's an increased volume of tarmac in Masaka. Lighting system is there. Of course, it can't be enough because the city has just started, but there is a quality improvement in lighting, access to piped water in Masaka and Barara. Of course, the question is, shall go now to housing, then physical planning. And of course, this now dates back to the colonial times, because these are towns which were planned for by the former governments. They had not thought much about organizing these areas, because maybe their approach was not towards having them as cities as soon as possible. So the issue of physical planning goes back to those ones who established them. And of course, when you come to opportunities, I believe these cities have come with opportunities. I was in Mbarara. We have got more than 3 universities in Mbarara operating. And I think this came with having a city in Mbarara. In Masaka, you have universities. Go to Soroti, you have got universities. Go to Arua, you have got universities. Go to Guru. So these universities have come with opportunities in terms of education. You come to platforms for investment. Recently, the president was in Mbarara launching an Industry 14. Why would an investor put money in an area which is rural? But because there is infrastructure development, you are sure of energy infrastructure, and the city has attracted investment. And this investment does not come alone. It comes with jobs. These cities have come with jobs. And of course, as Captain said, there has been reduced pressure on Kampala. You will not see people coming from Kabale or from Masaka in bigger volumes looking for jobs. Though they are not enough, you will still have young people asking for more. So these cities, of course, now a town like Kabale, which has been proposed, and I happen to be conflicted because it's my town. Kabale, of course, is a confluence of highways from Congo and from Rwanda. Kabale is a center of Chigezi. If we are taking the line of Captain, that every sub-region should have a town. Kabale is a center of Chigezi, and Chigezi is known to be a tourist destination. Now, because Kabale has not been a city to attract high-level infrastructure in terms of road network, in terms of air transport facilities, I don't think we are reaping much from what we have as a sub-region from tourism. Because then why would a tourist come from UK, land in Kampala, drive for over 450 kilometers to go and see the gorillas? So if this Kabale, for example, was also a city, maybe we would have had a developed air transport infrastructure, and tourism would be flowing in. So therefore, towns which have, in my view, been elevated cities have come with added developments. And of course, they have stimulated transformation within the agriculture sector. How? People are shifting from the known agriculture methods to more value addition agriculture methods like greenhousing. Of course, they are not springing up in bigger volumes, but they are beginning to spring up. Then, of course, value addition to agriculture products in cities. And so it would be wrong to presuppose that cities do not come with opportunities. Okay. They'll always come with opportunities, but of course, from where you are seated, you might not see them as quickly as possible. What I want to end with is, in 2016, the Minister of Finance and Economic Development pointed out that for Uganda to achieve the middle income status, upper middle income status by 2040, urbanization is a prerequisite. And therefore, the government moving towards having more cities is moving in the line to ensure that by 2040, Uganda is a middle income status, and its achievements therefore can have an impact on the population.
All right. Kassim Musisi, you've heard from your colleagues in their opening remarks to, these cities and their being operationalized. Kassim here has made a comment about the tea factory by the investor, yet in the same region. Teal. Oh, tea. Okay. All right. I had tea, so I was going to say E, but the tea farmers are already crying and complaining that the value of tea has fallen so much that they are thinking of alternative crops to actually engage in. For Chigezi to tourism, in regards to that, I mean, does it need or take a city to be able to extend that service to a region that is primed to contributing to the financial basket of this country? But Kassim Musisi, what are your 2 cents on this matter?
Well, I want to agree with Captain Francis. It's a planning issue, and the issue is what comes first before you talk about cities. We have a policy, called the National Urban Policy, which states that there are some issues that have to be in place before something becomes a city, an area. And one or two of them which I want to highlight for purpose of our discussion is that the place should show demonstrable ability to raise its own resources. In other words, we should not create a city which is just going to be a peg onto the national budget. You know that a city comes with an extra burden because, one, they are creating a different political regions, they are creating a different administrative units, and so on and so forth. Now, in our case, these particular cities, Parliament passed in 2020 that they should be created in a phased manner. Actually, some of these cities we're talking about should have been operationalized by this time, 2023. The question is, what has been in place to ensure that, even when we did about the phasing, that they're moving towards cities? What should come first? It shouldn't be that an area should first be declared a city, and then you just start talking about the essential services, the infrastructure services, and so on and so forth. They should first work onto those issues that, let me take an example of Wakiso. Even up to this morning, because I was in a meeting sometime on Friday last week, where the leaders, and we're talking about mayors of municipalities, don't even know where is Wakiso City going to be, what are going to be the borders, and you're talking about operationalizing them less than a year from now. And this is a resolution of Parliament of over 3 years ago. That's why I'm saying that it is a planning issue. Because and I'm giving a place which is so near Kampala, which people can relate with, that what are the boundaries of this city called Wakiso? Which political areas are going to be affected? If you're talking about, because the city comes with different alienations and different administrative units, how have you used the local leaders for purposes of using a bottom-up approach in planning? So we seem to have our priorities wrong by thinking that if you declare an area city, then everything else will fall into place. Indeed, I agree with my brother Kassim that a city does come with opportunities, comes with job opportunities, it attracts investments. However, it also comes with extra burdens. What you're calling urbanization is actually a global trend where we have more people living in urban areas. However, unplanned urbanization can actually hinder development. It's not automatic that if a place is urbanized, it will certainly grow development. We have problems of waste management in the capital city. We have problems of what we call an urban sprawl, where you have this unorganized development, and which then leads to slums. We have the urban deteriorating environment. How do we cater for issues of the environment in urban areas? A city ordinarily, according to that policy I cited, should have things like some semblance of roads and then street lighting and so on and so forth. So before we go into these issues, I'm saying that it's primarily a planning issue. That when government 3-4 years ago said that we should have these cities, what has it done to ensure that these areas are being prepared for the city status? Because a city has a direct charge on the consolidated fund. So if you say Wakiso City, Nakasongola City tomorrow, and then they start to create new units, of course the first thing will be holding elections, and because you have even more MPs, so you are creating a bigger burden onto the national resource without a corresponding income from those particular cities. So you are creating other entities which are going to be pegging onto the already depleted cost of public administration. So I think primarily it's a planning issue. I don't see any serious planning in terms of preparing for these cities, and we tend to think that by a place being declared a city, everything will automatically fall into place. Actually, we might have a reverse effect. And then there are issues that come with even city status problems, and I'm not saying, I've mentioned that there are many advantages, but we have conflicts now in these newly declared cities of land. You know that when a place is declared a city, there are some issues which change in terms of rates, property rates, and so on and so forth. So how have you gone in preparing these people in those areas that 8 months from now, these issues are going to change? So I think we have our priorities wrong. It should be planning first, then these other issues will fall into place.
Okay. Captain, in terms of planning, what ought to be the rightful channels of planning for the existence of cities?
Apart from the normal one that we know, there's normal planning, then there's physical planning of the infrastructure somebody was talking about. But there's slightly a little bit more to this. When you're talking about an attraction of a city, for example, let's take Mbarara. What are the main activities? You talked about education, center of excellence and things like that. Fantastic. But where's the money coming from? Now, Mbarara has got two things which are major because of being a ranching area and also having a lot of milk and a lot of leather, for example. What China has done, they've got every city to do certain things. If you want clothing, you go to a certain city. If you want leather, you go to a certain city. For example, here we are talking about, by the way, he was talking about tourism towns. They have named tourism towns already when they were debating. And they said Kisoro, for example, would be a tourism town. Fort Portal and, of course, Kasese would also be looked at a commercial area because of the copper which will be coming out of there. So there are certain cities already which you can name because of the local requirements, they can actually be given that status. Now, if Uganda did the plan very well, you know, people talk about coffee, they talk about Buganda coffee, but you forget that things like Mbali have got Arabica coffee, and West Nile has got both Arabic coffee and the other normal coffee. Now, if you look at this area, you talked about tea earlier on. In India, they've got what they call tea cities, like Kerala in the south, where and Sri Lanka, one of their biggest sales is tea. The question is, how do we turn our cities into having commercial ventures that can sustain this? But the initial infrastructure required will be done by central government and then develop these commercial requirements, which will bring in money. He did talk about the legal side of it. Apart from taxes, there are certain things you can create which will resonate with national policy. You know, Ginger, when the Europeans were planned it as a place where they have industries because electricity was near. And therefore most of those industries, if you see, they are not very far from the source of the electricity. So you've got to create these cities with something in mind that will tell you that not only do they have, for example, Hoima now, obviously because of oil, it's got something you can put, but not only oil, look at other things which can be produced there. For example, there's a lot of other oil products where industries could be put there, where these oil products will be produced so that they can be sold to other countries. You're talking about a lot of oil products which are being talked about. I was looking at a very interesting thing when talking about this garbage. One of the countries is using all those plastic bottles to create types of the product which will make roads. So that because we cannot, destroy the plastics, They are now using them to make products which are now making their roads, and that is Singapore. So the question is, do we, as Ugandans, during this planning, he's talking about planning. There are two types of planning. Ugandans look at physical planning, good roads, I don't know, that's fantastic. But those require money. But the actual planning is they plan the economic ventures, they plan about this. For example, if you say it is a tourist city, you've got to have good hotels, you've got to have good roads, you've got to have an airport, yes, which will bring in all these people. They have one, they're building one in Kabale and so on and so forth. This is okay. But this is the simplest one of the lot. The whole thing, what does it produce to bring more money? For example, Kampala produces 70% of our budget, of our income in terms of taxation. What taxation are we going to get out of Kabale, out of Nakasongola, out of this area? Now, I got also excited. Why Wakiso when you're forming the Kampala Metropolitan? You're saying it is a municipality already. Improve on that municipality. Let it be part of the big cosmopolitan area you're talking about, and let it be part of it. So now, these are the kind of things that we should be reasoning. There's nothing wrong making it a city. But don't get me wrong. I'm not against any city. I want them to form them. But let's form them with good planning, with a good physical plan. And we need to put in an initial huge sums of money to make them look like capitals. Which
huge sums of money come at the cost of all of us here. We have to pay for those taxes in order to create the operations for the cities. New cities in the 21st century are actually built on the interceptions of economics. Sheikh Kassim, you do have industrialization that is being pushed right now, but also there's the arm of politics that is influencing things, being characterized by the major events that we do have building up towards the election cycle. 2026 is around the corner, and yet at the end of the day, we are also seeing a gap in all of this, making sure that the private sector comes on board to enable these cities become a reality in terms of what government is projecting. Where do we stand, on a divided line or on a straight road?
Depending on where you are seated, but our law, Article 179, Article 179, Sabbatical 4, gives guidance on how cities can be established. And it talks about, it lays down what could be the benchmarks. And one of them is maybe the wishes of the people. And that is how the law is saying. Maybe the wishes of the people can be considered. Now, I don't know when the wishes of the people become political or not become political. Because what I've realized is, for the phase one of the cities, there is no area which was given a city and it rejected it. We have not seen people demonstrate. Because in Uganda, demonstration has become really, if managed well, a way of showing satisfaction. But we have not seen people demonstrate because they have been given a city. So, whether it is politics influencing or not, the people in a given area are accepting that they should have a city. If we talk about where the private sector's involvement is, I can say that when you look at what is taking place in these cities, whether in Arua, whether in Soroti, whether in Mbarara or Masaka, most of the developments which are sprang up in these cities are being done by private individuals. Why? Because the approach of our country, and especially the captain who was there before in governance, is liberalization of the economy. So when the economy is liberalized, therefore means that it's the private individuals who will take lead. So in these cities you are seeing the private individual take lead, especially in if we went into the line of trade and commerce, it is the private individuals who are taking lead in commerce. But of course, government is also supporting all these activities by ensuring that you have energy infrastructure. I can talk about, for example, my area, Kabale, as we speak today, Kabale district, not Kabale of Hoima, where they are constructing an airport. Very soon we shall have a completed power station Why? Because the government is preparing for the coming of the city. So the private sector is involved, but the government is giving support. You see cities, for example, Arua. Arua has come out because the people are involved in trade with Congo and South Sudan. And so these cities, vis-a-vis economics, vis-a-vis industry, vis-a-vis politics, vis-a-vis the private sector, there is a match. I'm not seeing a mismatch anywhere. Look at a city like Jinja, and I want to agree with my senior that Jinja grew because of industry. Up to today, we have not had any other district being named as the industrial city of Uganda, apart from Jinja. Okay.
Jinja grew. It's not growing. Is it still growing anymore at the same pace that it was growing?
Maybe same pace.
It's a question we're going to come back and start with right after this break. All right, thank you so much for still being with us. Effectiveness of public service delivery in creation and operationalization of the 15 cities that we do have under the employment of our parliament, and of course the Ministry of Finance must then support it by giving money in that regard, building those cities. However, all my guests this morning, we do have Councillor Kassim Kamugisha, Captain Francis Babu, and also Councillor George Musisi. They're not disagreeing that as a country we don't need development of cities now more than ever. It's just how it is being done that is under question right now. We went into the break, you know, Mr. Kassim here saying that Jinja grew, and why I put that into emphasis is because he made it, and from his submissions, it sounded like there's now stunted growth to Jinja, and it begs the question, what over the course of time has led to the stunted growth of Jinja?
Well, I said Jinja is growing because
you've changed your statement.
If it had started,
your fellow councillors have laughed at the change of your statement.
If it had started, then we wouldn't have had it elevated to the status. And of course, see, Jinja had been a base or an entry point of colonialism into Uganda, but at the same time, trade and commerce, because our trade and commerce was not originated organically. It came with the Arab traders, and of course it was an entry point. And of course, when there were changes of powers and all that, there was a shift, and focus was put onto other areas, and you see Kampala peaking on and overtaking Jinja. So the standardness of Jinja, if I want to take that line, cannot be alienated from the politics of the time, the shift in the focus of the subsequent governments, but also the approaches of the governments which came into power after independence, where they still looking at Jinja as an entry point for trade and commerce, where they having where we still having, for example, of recent generation of power from Jinja only, or we developed other stations and they were supplying power, and so industry had to spread to other areas of the country, and you have got Namanve as industrial area, you have Kapeka. So factors for the slow progress in the growth of Jinja town cannot be can be political, can be economic, but
can those factors be tied to the fact that, again, how this planning is being done is in a wrongful manner? Why do I say that? Jinja, I think most recently, post-COVID-19, we've had a breakdown in its health sector. The referral hospital, they're running out of medical supplies ever so often and not having as many specialized staffing as should be. It's a city. The poor poor road infrastructure. All of us have been to Jinja most recently, and the potholes there are actually valleys that create hills at the end of the day. And if we're going by the fact that it should be a planning that where central government does make an initial investment to harness the development in that area, so that that development can then create an economic cycle that can have a support system for its area, particularly in Jinja in this case, then it shouldn't be, Jinja shouldn't be in this worry, but they kind of have to end up at central government to be able to find solution to the challenges that they do have. Anyway, away from that, I think as the captain, you make a comment on that, and also I'd like you to make a comparison. We have our neighbors here in Rwanda that are having rapid growth, especially when it comes to their major towns and the city by and large. And so we see a city that has been transformed, all coming down to proper infrastructure development, planning, and then resource consideration in developing of some of their other towns and elements. Where's the conflict there?
No, it's not a conflict. It's the foundation which was laid by our colonial masters when they came here. They laid a certain foundation which some of us built on. It is not something that we planned. It's something that we found there and we started building on it. Now, if you look at a country, ours was a protectorate, Uganda government, Uganda. Kenya was a colony. If you look at the infrastructure they built in the colonies, you'll find that there's slightly a difference. Now, that infrastructure gave us the strength how to do that. So since we got independence, a country like Uganda has not been in planning. It's been in a war of politicians trying to make themselves be seen. So we really have not built our country the way we should build it. And therefore, it does tell a lot. Now, if you look at an investor, he was talking about the private sector. A man is going to bring his organization from just Singapore. He's going to come from Dubai. He's going to come from London. He's going to come from America. He's going to come to an area. I'm now talking about an area where they want to put that particular factory or industry. You're going to find he's going to require certain minimum requirements. People who bring when this group came for the oil, there's a group that came and started getting houses here. They were looking for international schools. They were looking for good medical facilities. They were looking at certain infrastructure which was required. So even when you want the private sector to go in that area, you've got to have that in your infrastructure. So your planning has to be absolutely on the money. And if you cannot plan well, you're going to have problems with this. Now, going back to what I said earlier on, these countries that have copied us, we got all these in our planning before they did. So they took our planning and improved on it. So when you talk about these countries which are next to us, they have actually taken some of our very good. We've got all this planning in our library, gathering dust. The whole point is, do we put it in effect, and what does it cost us? Now we are more interested in creating constituencies for people than we are interested in how do those constituencies look like. We were talking about a few cities which were created the other day. They have been coming back to government and said, we don't have money to develop these cities. They have been saying it. And we should not lie to ourselves. Our pocket is not that heavy in to run this. For example, you talk about just cleaning the city. We started here in Kampala to clean the city than our neighbors. Our neighbors copied our system. Their city is one of the best because they copied our system. We went into city council. Today we have a problem. We have something called an authority, then there's something called council. So you're having a pool. Council is pulling, authority is pulling. There is a war. So these are the kind of things that are creating us our problems. We need to get away from politics and go into planning, physical planning, and actually managing the development of those areas. Those cities are very nice. He was talking about Kabale. Kabale is one of the most beautiful towns we have in this country. It's got a good weather. In fact, one of our first international school in this country was in Kabale.
KPS
was made by a certain family. Why? Because the weather was the same as the one in Kenya, and therefore an international school would be better there for those children of the people who came from other countries to work there. So the whole point, can we develop? Can we plan, urban planning? Can we sit down? For example, we're talking about housing. You know that Uganda, Ministry of Works, Housing that time, started a slum. It started upgrading certain towns. In Jinja we did Masese. In Mbale we did Maluku, and in Arua we did Oli. These were houses which were meant to come up for a low-income people, and then transforming some of those slums. I don't like to use those words, but the slums of the informal settlement into little good, nice housing. It stopped because the government of Uganda does not have a big policy on housing. And housing is one of the most important things in these cities. You need housing, you need roads, you need good water, you need good electricity. And I told you the industry in Jinja, actually Jinja started because of Kakira sugar works. But the industries went there because our dam was built on River Nile, and therefore electricity was easily got by these industries. So there was an attraction for our companies. And then most of these people even had schools there. So we need to really sit down and say, wait a minute. Let's say we want Gulu to be our center of Acholi. What are the products of Acholi? Let's go on cotton alone. If the whole of Acholi were to produce cotton, I think our textile industry would be in Gulu. Now, you go to Arua, they've got coffee, they've got minerals, they've got all sorts of things. Can we make that city become so important that because of those commercial requirements, we do give them an infrastructure which will attract the investors to go there? Because even attracting an investor, he's not going to put their factory in isolation and all his workers are staying in Kampala.
Yeah, but that's what we're seeing. Even now, so often they're putting industrial parks in isolation. Just give them water and electricity and then have them running.
No. Theoretically, a lot of our people have got a lot of theories in their head. Oh, he wakes up in the morning, oh, let's have an industrial thing. No.
Okay.
Have you planned for it? I've got no problem. Have all those things that you want, but please plan and then attach a cash tag on it, money. You cannot run an industrial area without having roads, without having water, without having electricity. I went to South Africa, and between Pretoria and Johannesburg, there was an area where they are coming up with the new development of housing.
Okay.
Before the housing was there, the roads, electricity, and everything was already there. So people could come now and build houses and have all those facilities, including roads. But I was looking at our place here, going on Masaka Road, Chengera, and then you go to the next town, which is, they've got a very nice hill there. The hill has been built with houses with no roads. So the planning is extremely important, physical planning is extremely important. We need our expert to be given a chance to explain how some of these cities could get these facilities to improve and make them real cities. We
do have MP Michael Kakembo from Entebbe that is joining us for this discussion with Ivan Waronyoro to give us his 2 cents on planning, especially given the fact that Entebbe municipality is going to be one of the beneficiaries of this operationalization phase. Good morning to you, Ivan.
Well, indeed, Priscilla, good morning to you and our audience. I am coming to you from Entebbe municipality, just like you earlier put it, this beautiful morning. Of course, we know very well that the debate which is on is the creation of the new 5 cities, actually, from that. And Entebbe municipality is part, just like you saw last time, the Finance Minister Matia Kasaija just put it into clarity that from 1st of June next year, that's the new financial year, these cities have to be operational. But of course, a case for Entebbe, it will be annexing Katabi Town Council. There is also Kasaija and Ibusi that will be incorporated to make Entebbe a city. And we know Entebbe was first the colonial administrative capital of the country just before Kampala took over the role. But a lot comes with that, a lot of challenges and expectations when we all think about a city. But we want to understand from the Honourable Member of Parliament, that is Michael Kakemba, who is just putting it into context of what this whole entails or means to the people of Entebbe, but also the rest of the country. And Honourable Michael Kakemba, thank you so much for joining Morning at NTV.
Good morning, NTV, and good morning, Ivan.
Yes.
I want to thank you for paying me a visit. Thank you so much.
According to the Finance Minister, from 1st of June next year, the city has to be operationalized. That's Entebbe. I mean, July, I can say. It has to be operational. But we want to understand from a legislative angle, what does this mean for the people of Entebbe?
Well, I can remind you that it was not only the Minister of Finance, Kasaija, he was just reaffirming the statement from the Prime Minister. You remember the question I put to the Prime Minister on the floor of Parliament? It was out of my question from to the Prime Minister as to when we should operationalize Entebbe City and others. So the Minister of Finance, Bwana Kasaija, was just reaffirming the statement from the Prime Minister. It is indeed a blessing in disguise. I would tell you that Entebbe was long overdue. Historically, Entebbe was a city before, because it was the first capital city of this country. But it has been a municipality. So it has not been enjoying the funding from the central government. If you look around and go and visit those places where they have been granted the cities, like Masaka, go to Guru, go to Arua, things are different in terms of infrastructure development. That means government sends money to assist the cities to meet up the real ingredients of a city, starting from the infrastructure, the road network, the schools, the hospitals, and I think we are long overdue.
Honorable, when we're talking about a city, we look at things that will make it stand, especially generating revenue for itself and the rest. How is Entebbe ready for this if you look at it in terms of what we have and the things that surround us? Because you're going to annex Katabi, Vusi and Kasaija to make it part of Entebbe.
If I can tell you that Entebbe has it all. Look at the location of Entebbe at the Lake Victoria. Entebbe, remember, it has been a peninsula for some good time. So it is at the waters of Lake Victoria. That's a very big resource for development, tourism development, any, you can name it. Could be business. We shall link Entebbe to Kalangala, for example. Link Entebbe to Jinja. Link Entebbe to Kasaija. Link it to Buaya. Let it go to Busi. All those areas are on the waters. That means Entebbe is a potential for tourism development. The only problem I've been having is the size of Entebbe. Entebbe, since it has been a peninsula, very small within the Lake Victoria, it will not expand. Now when we talk of Entebbe City, we are talking of expansion and creating breathing space. For Entebbe now, we shall extend to Busi. We can have so many big hotels, 5-star hotels on the waters. How beautiful can that be? Buaya. It's very virgin, has a lot of land, which Entebbe has been missing. Now, when you come to Entebbe now, you find most of the smaller hotels we have there in Ibugonga. Those places you see, they are residential areas, approximately 1 acre. That's now where they're putting hotels. Now we are getting a chance to extend to Buaya, where you can have bigger chunks of land, where you can develop big projects, big business, big camping sites, big hotels. We just need the infrastructure.
Honorable, you're only talking about the opportunities that will come with the city status. But what are some of those challenges that you think will also come along with this and need to be addressed?
Well, I will not look at the challenges as such. What I'm saying, the challenges has been there. So Entebbe City is coming to solve the challenges. First of the challenge, I told you, the size of Entebbe, being a peninsula, it has been very small. We have no space for development. Now we are expanding to include other parts of Entebbe. Another challenge was, it has been the population. Entebbe population, if you look at it, it is basically tourist. They come during the day, at night they are no more. it has been very difficult to develop business in a place where there are no people who are sleeping in Entebbe. We have been housing United Nations here in Entebbe, but they have not been sleeping.
And actually, I was going there because when they wanted to leave in 2007, if I can say, they were citing some of the reasons. You never had the international schools around, you never had hospitals and the rest.
So when you talk of Entebbe City, and I tell you, I need the real ingredients of a city, those are the challenges we are going to answer now. Entebbe, UN, they've been sleeping in Rubowa. Why? We don't have enough space. We don't have good housing facilities in Entebbe. Entebbe International Airport has a Civil Aviation Authority. Many times you see them carrying staff from Mutinda, from Kampala, from Wandegea. Why? Because most of them don't sleep here. That means people come in Entebbe, pick our money. They don't spend that money in Entebbe. They go with it and spend it outside Entebbe. That's very difficult for business to grow. Now we are talking of expanding Entebbe to include other areas. I can sleep in Buwaya, work in Entebbe. If I have a bridge from Nachogo to Buwaya, I was talking of the connectivity. That means I can have business in Kitoro, retire at midnight, drive back to Buwaya and sleep in Buwaya.
Honorable, you are going to now stand alone because you are going to be cut off from Wakiso district supplies. You're going to stand alone as a municipality and transforming it from a municipality to a city. Now, of course, we know that there is going to be an increment in funding and the rest. But we're looking at some of those things, the expectations you have from government in as far as how you're talking about funding all these things. Stand alone now, not depending on Wakiso.
Oh, yes. Oh, no, Entebbe has been semi-autonomous, being a municipality. So I've been collecting our revenue, and we are supposed to utilize it at source. Now we are going into a city. We are going to include other parts of Wakiso, like Katabi, which is a very, very big business area. Katabi, landing site like Kassim, landing site, go to Galga Road, whatever business is there, we have so many hotels there. That means we are increasing the tax base for Entebbe City now. And on top of that, government is going to increase the funding. The funding for Entebbe municipality, by law, is not equivalent to Entebbe City, for example, for any city. I'm a member of parliament.
Yes.
And one of my roles is to appropriate.
Okay.
We shall do that.
Okay, then before we hand over the conversation back to the studio, last time I saw your tweet, you talked about having big ferries that can take people from Entebbe to Jinja to Masaka so that you decongest Kampala by traffic. What were you meaning by that tweet, just before we hand over the conversation?
I was bringing proposals. The government should wake up to this reality. If we are developing Entebbe, we must put in place the driving factors that will develop Entebbe to the status we were looking at. We need Entebbe, we are trying to develop it into a tourist destination center. What are those factors that will help us grow our tourist base in Entebbe? We are talking of the cruise boats. Those big boats, I saw them in Tanzania, Mwanza. They cruise from Zanzibar to Dar es Salaam. Those big ones. Azam has them. We can have them in Entebbe. People, why do I go to Kampala if I'm going to Jinja? For the tourists who are enjoying Entebbe, they want to enjoy more at Lake Victoria. They can use a cruise boat from Entebbe to Jinja, enjoy, and those from Jinja to Entebbe. We shall be decongesting Kampala in terms of traffic jam along Mukono Road. You understand? I
understand.
We have Chigungu, connecting it to Busi, because Busi will be part of us. They don't even have a ferry.
Okay.
I'm saying the ferry that we have at Nachuogo, well, it's not very small like it used to be. I want to thank the minister. They gave us a bigger ferry. But I want that ferry to go on the other side to feed Chigungu and Busi. Nachuogo Buwaya, we don't need a ferry there anymore. Yes. We need a bridge. That bridge will help us link
just 5 seconds, Honorable.
Municipality to Buwaya and other areas.
Okay, Honorable, I am told we are running out of time. I want to thank you really for making time to speak to us this beautiful morning. I'm really humbled, and I want to thank you, NTV, for paying me a visit. Okay. Honorable Michael Kakembo, just putting it into context of when Entebbe municipality will be operationalized from 1st of July next year, according to the finance minister. 5 cities that have been also been created, and also a lot comes with that, challenges, opportunities, and the rest. And that is the conversation that we have been having here in Entebbe, but for time reasons, you let me get the conversation back to the studios. Priscilla, if you can listen to me, pick it away from me. Good morning to you, our audience.
Ivan, and good morning to you. All the best to the people and leadership in Entebbe. This must be exciting news. But the MP mentioned something about driving factors. I'll turn to Councillor George. What in the present moment that it is, we cannot go back and re-strategize and plan accordingly as it speculatively should be. The realities are here and before us. What are the present driving factors that can be lobbied upon to actually ensure the realities of what is being spoken of on this table?
Of course, the driving factors you have to look at initially what is the purpose of government and what is the role of government in this whole thing. Government is just supposed to put in place factors to spur private sector development. Then the other factors will fall into place. And one of the problems people like me have with these proclamations is that they have not been attendant issues, basics dealt with. Kassim and Captain Francis Adia talked about ginger. From our primary school social studies, those of us who studied social studies, we remember what they used to tell us, why was ginger in an industrial city? Because of power, primarily. So government is supposed to handle the basics, put in place infrastructure, put in place, ensure that there are essential services like police, like hospitals, put in place, make the cost of doing business as little as possible. Then private sector development will automatically follow. It doesn't make sense where a person is grappling with, an investor is grappling with the issues of land because of land issues. Then when they go to court, access to justice is a problem because the dispute will take 5 years to be resolved. Access to finances. Then they have issues with the roads. You look at the roads in some of all these places they call cities, the infrastructure in place. So what is there that government has done that will spur private sector? Such that naturally when private sector comes in with the factory, then the workers come in, then the housing will go up, then the people who sell food will come. That is how it works at a very basic level. So for you to imagine that, okay, when the proclamation comes, and then jobs will come in, and then the MP was talking about money from government, that we're going to get funding. But that is having it wrong, because initially there should be some sort of sustainability by this city in itself. And that sustainability will not come out of the blue. Captain Francis talked about that we should divorce this with politics. Sadly, I don't think we can, because politicians make the decisions. And some of those decisions are actually driven by politics. Because I told you earlier, Priscilla, that this issue was resolved by Parliament 3-4 years ago. We would have no problem now if we had our priorities right with this thing rolling out, because everything would be in place. But the mere fact that we're even debating it, the mere fact that we even have contestations at the highest planning levels, where I saw the PSST seeming to contradict the political head of the ministry, it shows that we are not moving in the right direction. So government should return to the basics. And yes, I don't think that we can divorce this from politics, because now political considerations, especially as we go into the next gen elections, tend to take precedence in each and every decision. But lastly, it should be planning first and before implementation. We seem to have implementation, then we plan later. Link
us the marriage between the politics and development, urbanization.
Of course, with urbanization, if you have political leaders, the political leaders like the Member of Parliament, they are looking at what is in it for me. And I don't even blame them, rightly so. Everyone would have to first look for their interests. Because maybe there are new constituencies going to be created, maybe there are new divisions going to be created. So they first look at those interests, that okay, with this city there will be a new division which possibly will be created, and then my work for going to Parliament is easier. And you don't even blame them. That's why I'm saying that the government, which is in charge of planning at the bigger level, should be able to look at the bigger picture without the smaller interests. But then again, sometimes even government is also preoccupied by politics. You look at some of those cities. I want to cite the example of Nakasongola. What is the income of Nakasongola in the first place? Are we going to create a city which is going to be fed? What has been we can take a look at the cities which are created, the Masaka, Mbarara. What has been the implementation, what has been the efficacy of revenue generation in those cities? So if we don't put technocrats at the center that we can implement decisions irrespective of political considerations, because human beings will have political considerations and you don't blame them. But then government should be able to look at the bigger picture without necessarily being influenced by politics. But then, like I've said, I don't think that can happen now.
All right, as we go into the impacts of Marxism and liberalism, I'm going to allow these two gentlemen a minute each to give us closing recommendations, remarks to the subject matter of the progress of municipalities turning into cities and how this all builds up into socio-economic development on a national level. Sheikh Kassim.
My closing remark on the topic could be, one, the government of Uganda took an approach of mass line in health, immunization, in education, wealth creation, and urbanization could not be exceptional. So the creation of cities is in fulfillment of the approach of mass line. And to me, I believe that an idea should be there. Then you look at how to finance the idea. So that the wall of resources, in my view, should not come up, because you can't finance an non-existing idea. You have to finance an idea. Number two, of course, there has to be a bigger effort and investment in planning. For that one, I agree with the fellow panelists. There should be an intended and conscious effort in planning, especially physical planning for these cities. And from there, I have confidence that Uganda will spark off. Not forgetting that very soon we shall be having the first drop of oil, and oil is exhaustible. After 30 years, we won't be having it. So there should be an idea where the oil money shall be invested, and that of course shall go into infrastructure, roads. You have airports, you have hotels. So that when this resource has been exhausted, then you still have the marks left behind for the economy to keep moving. So for me, I believe the idea of cities is a very correct line of thought, and we should not worry about financing the idea, because ideas always have to come first and the finances follow.
All right, that's not the reality for bigger oil countries like Nigeria, so why should it be a reality?
But Saudi Arabia was there.
Again, exactly. So, Captain, as you bring it to a close, it brought to my attention, the very same government is in the business of doing merging, MDAs. And so if you're merging MDAs, meaning that you're taking back central governance of, service delivery to this country, and yet in line of that, on the other side, the very same government is coming up with such decisions, we are tearing apart.
Yeah, it's a try and it's like try and error.
But where are we supposed to be doing try and error?
No, I was there when they were being formed. There were reasons why these agencies were formed. There were reasons, very good reasons. For example, let's take the Ministry of Works. It had problems even retaining engineers in the government. They couldn't pay them. Therefore, the supervision of the infrastructures which we were putting up, we didn't have. So they created UNRWA, so that they could have all these experts in UNRWA to be able to supervise the infrastructures that we're putting on.
Okay.
Therefore, there was a little bit of a problem. What is the problem now? That is something they're trying to give. But as far as I'm concerned, sometimes we have these experiments in this country. A lot of our elite are experimenting with our lives. I think it's a little bit wrong. Let's take Entebbe, for example. Entebbe, let's go from the British time. Why did the British take State House at Entebbe? Because it's a good residential area. Why did they put the airport at Entebbe? Because it did not have any obstruction landing at any airport. Why did they have a lot of residences in Entebbe? Because Entebbe is a beautiful place for residents. What can we do with Entebbe now? Even without thinking very hard, one thing, we can make it a duty-free port, like Dubai. We bring all the things into Entebbe, and our businessmen, instead of going to Dubai, to China, they go to Entebbe to buy them. So it becomes a service industry. What's the other service industry? Hospitality, hotels, which we have there. Make it so that we have offshore. People having offshore banks in Britain, in a place like Isle of Man, Jersey. These are towns of Britain. Why can't we make Entebbe an offshore place where we can make money out of the service industry? Now, Entebbe, you can have a beautiful residential area, an expensive, well-planned residential area with all those bridges we are talking about, and make it a place where people go even for a weekend. So Entebbe can be a town of service industries. We can have banks. We can have, for example, the people who have built malls there, I remove my hat because they have seen the future. If that becomes a residential area, those malls are going to be extremely busy.
Yeah.
The hotels, because of the airport. You know, therefore, what else can we do? Can we make all the banks have their headquarters in Entebbe and therefore make it a tax-free and an offshore account where you can go and put your company up? Think about these kind of things so that they can make money for Entebbe. I don't think Entebbe we can have industries in Entebbe. Entebbe cannot have big industries, but they can have service industries. There are many service industries you can have in Entebbe and make a lot of money to run. Now, going back to what you were saying, merging or dismerging, this is mismanagement. They've mismanaged the agencies. They now think by putting them back, they will not mismanage them. But within the government, they're already mismanaging a lot of things. So we are talking about management and mismanagement. And as far as I'm concerned, we are wasting our time on issues that are very simple, and we are not putting our money where our mouth is. Thank you very much.
Switching sales, liberalism and Marxism are analyzed as philosophical constructions which conceive democracy as a principle which legitimizes and also rationalizes structures, institutions, social relations of given social formations. How are these reflected in Uganda's modern day politics? I'll start with you, Councillor George.
Well, our constitutional dispensation tries to, in as much as possible, show some bit of liberalism, which is largely associated with the freedoms of the individual at a basic level. And of course, those ones are expounded in different aspects, including the freedom to associate, to express yourself, to own property as an individual. And at its very basic core level, it's about the sanctity of the self, me, that I should have the freedom to do what I want for as long as I don't hurt the second person. And of course, it for so long tried to be espoused in different institutions, in different spaces. But now, years later, because we have a constitutional dispensation which has been around for quite some time now, we can sit down and reflect that, has this worked? Is this working? What are some of the challenges that we have faced in order to fully get its benefits? And at the core of all these principles still is the politics, because you know politics determines each and every aspect of governance and even the individual at the other level. Because one, we have a government which is supposed to implement. Government is put at the center of all that. It's supposed to protect my freedoms. It's supposed to regulate policies which either can show excesses of capitalists or socialists. Marxism usually tends more to socialism, a classless society, where there are no privileged people, where there are no... So government is supposed to be at the center of the interactions of both those principles. That one, because it sets policies, it enforces laws, it also supposed to ensure that I enforce my rights in case they are mistaken. So I think when we sat down almost 30 years ago to have this constitution, which have the 95, which is at the center of each and everything, we try to espouse principles of each, Marxism, liberalism. But now if we reflect, where are we standing? I would say that I don't know. I don't know where we are heading. Because one, we seem to have a society which has created some bit of very privileged people. In the same society, you have people who are struggling to make it a day. I'm not talking about taking their children to school. I'm talking about daily survival. And all of them are in, we have them in Kampala here. And then on the other hand, if the rights which are given to me by the law, for instance, are taken away, what guarantees do I have under the law to ensure that they are protected? Do I have? So at the center of it all is politics, is the government, and we can sit down now and reflect what is working, what is not working for us, but we just need to put our politics right. We just need, this thing they call rule of law presupposes that if any person has a problem, you can seek enforcement. And it's supposed to protect interests of all, whether you're in a Marxist society, whether you are an individual. How do you enforce your rights? And rule of law at a very basic level says Priscilla, Kassim, Francis, and myself have the same rights under the law and should have the same protection. So it should come that if Francis, who is bigger and wealthier and maybe more powerful, comes to enforce or evict me from my small casisida, my small hut, I should have the same protection under the law like him. So I think at a very basic level, all the protection of all those policies, principles, lies down in how far do we ensure that we have a society which respects the rule of law.
Sheikh Kassim, how do you define a present-day politics for our country, Uganda, in line of these two philosophies?
As Council alluded, our constitution is 90% liberal, because 30 years ago, when we were having this constitution promulgated, we had a collapse of a communist society. So I think most of the players at the time had a fear of alignment of themselves to the Marxist view. So our constitution is quite liberal, and therefore, in my own understanding of the politics of our country, and which could be the bigger picture of many, we are in a liberal political society as a country. Because one, when you try to interrogate the Marxist approach, for them they believe in the class struggle because of uneven distribution of wealth. And of course they assert that a certain class should be awakened by international players, certain class should be awakened when they feel that their right to politically participate in the affairs of their country is infringed on. And in our country today, the politics are quite open. That one, you have got a free participation in a periodical elections, 5 years. It's never in any country in the world a free and best election. It is always a free and fair election. Why? Because the logical mind understand that you cannot have the best election. There will always be gaps. Number two, you are in a country whereby largely you have got your freedoms to express yourself if you are mindful of the rights of others. Thirdly, you are in a country where you are sure that you can contest for any elective position in the country. And you're in a country whereby politically you have got a liberalized economy whereby you can wake up and start business in the morning and no one touches your arm. So from where I sit, I believe that the politics of our country vis-a-vis these two schools of thought, liberalism and Marxism, we have taken a quite liberal direction, and this is good for a progressive democracy like Uganda.
In regards to that, then we wrap it up with looking at the impacts that have been of either of the philosophies on modern day politics, especially in the reflection of Uganda.
Thank you very much. It reminds me of a king of Europe during the colonial time who told the actors who went to a country called Congo, he said, please use this version, the verses in the Bible, which tells these people that poor people will inherit heaven.
The meek shall inherit.
So, the poor you are, then you expect to go to heaven. If you are rich, you might have to pass through the eye of the needle. Now, those are the kind of things that elites use to deceive people in a country. Socialism, I'm sorry, socialism is between the two. You talked about Marxism. Marxism is a philosophy. Capitalism is on economy, socio-economic, you know, of every country. And the Marxism is a political philosophy method of socio-economic. And this same thing, capitalism is a socio-economic enterprise also. So you're looking at two different areas. One is on this side, one is on the other side. Here they say private sector shall own everything, the private individual ownership. This one says government will. Now when you bring them in the two, they give us another word called socialism. So you can go from the middle going towards capitalism, or you go from the middle going towards communism. It's up to you. When we came here with the 10-point program, we talked about the mixed economy. That means you bring the two together. Are you with me now?
Yes.
So after we've talked about this, we forget about this materialistic and all that. The elite have this habit of making the poor believe that they are working for them. They are not. This rule of law you keep on hearing is to make the man in the heart say, oh yeah, there is a rule of law. I'll stay in my heart forever. No.
Which type of heart?
No, the beret.
So, when you talk about liberal economy, what do you mean by liberal economy? Liberal economy means that you people live in houses which look like castles, and I live in a hut. Is that liberal economy? So we need to really sit down and rethink very hard between the two of ownership. And the majority of our people, and we are talking about poverty lines here, are extremely poor. We are coming out with the programs which directly tell you that things are not well. Talking about poverty eradication, we talk about poverty alleviation, we talk about this. We are saying that our country is not well off. Now what do we need to do? The man who is now the president of Bangladesh started with a Grameen Bank. A Grameen Bank is a people's bank. A people's bank is, you know, in this country, you're talking about PDM and all this. But we have not organized that. We've organized it differently. The question is the elite in this country really ready to wake up so that they can bring the majority on board and they can also be part of the country?
Well, the elite are making decisions without consulting you know, the ones that they are leading. So it's a really significant divide that we continue to see in our everyday society. But gentlemen, Sheikh Kassim Kamugisha, thank you so much. Captain Francis Babu, thank you so much. And also Councillor George Musisi, asante sana for your 2 cents. We're also being joined by our very own man on the ground, Stephen Mbide, who is in Chitante.